Boss said I wasn't leadership material. Then the board revealed I bought the rival company for $26 million. I walked into the boardroom, expecting applause. My latest project had increased quarterly revenue by 18%, numbers that spoke for themselves. Instead, my boss, Victor Kane, barely looked up from his phone. The room felt cold despite the afternoon sun streaming through the windows. I sat down, folders organized, presentation ready. Victor finally acknowledged me with a dismissive wave. "Alex, we need to discuss your future here," he said flatly. My stomach tightened. This wasn't the opening I'd anticipated. "You've done adequate work, but let's be honest, you're not leadership material." The words hit like a slap. Colleagues around the table suddenly found their notebooks fascinating. Nobody met my eyes. Heat rushed to my face, humiliation burning through my chest. "You lack the instinct," Victor continued, leaning back in his chair like a king delivering judgment. "The vision. The presence that leaders need." I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but my throat felt tight. I stood abruptly, gathering my materials with shaking hands. Walking out, I heard whispers behind me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. An email from an unknown sender, opportunity others can't see. Check attachment. Back at my desk, I opened the mysterious email with trembling fingers. The attachment contained detailed financial information about TechVision Industries, our biggest rival company. My pulse quickened as I scanned the documents. TechVision was struggling badly, drowning in debt despite owning valuable patents and technology. The numbers told a story of mismanagement and missed opportunities. Why was someone sending me this? I glanced around the office, paranoid suddenly. Everyone seemed focused on their screens, oblivious. I forwarded the files to my personal email and deleted the original message. That night, I couldn't sleep. I spread the documents across my kitchen table, coffee growing cold as I analyzed every page. TechVision held patents for AI integration software that every tech company desperately wanted, including ours. Victor had mentioned those patents in meetings, his eyes gleaming with corporate hunger. He wanted them badly but couldn't figure out how to acquire them affordably. Excitement and fear tangled in my chest. This was massive, dangerous, potentially career-ending. But what if I could pull it off? What if I could acquire TechVision myself? The thought seemed insane and brilliant simultaneously. I started taking notes, my mind racing with possibilities. My phone lit up with a calendar reminder. Meeting with Victor, tomorrow morning, 9 sharp. At 3 in the morning, I was still awake, drafting a strategy. Buy TechVision quietly, secure the patents, then leverage that position for real power. The plan felt audacious and terrifying. I had savings, not millions, but enough to start conversations. I'd need investors, legal help, absolute secrecy. If Victor discovered my intentions before completion, he'd crush me without hesitation. I thought about his words, not leadership material. Rage bubbled up, fueling my determination. I'd show him exactly what kind of leader I could be. By dawn, I had a rough outline. First, contact TechVision's CEO discreetly. Second, assemble a small team of trusted advisors. Third, secure funding through private channels Victor couldn't trace. Fourth, move fast before anyone suspects anything. The risks were enormous. If this failed, I'd lose everything: my job, my savings, my reputation. But if it succeeded, I'd have leverage Victor couldn't ignore. I'd have power he'd never anticipated. I saved the documents in an encrypted folder and finally tried to sleep for 2 hours. My alarm jolted me awake at 7. I dressed carefully, armor for battle. Walking into the office felt different now. I had a secret, a mission. Victor's meeting request sat in my inbox, bold and demanding. Whatever he wanted to discuss, I'd face it calmly. I had bigger plans now. Victor's office smelled like expensive leather and arrogance. He didn't invite me to sit, leaving me standing like a scolded child. "Alex, your performance review is concerning," he began, eyes scanning a document I'd never seen. Multiple colleagues have mentioned you seem distracted, disconnected from team goals. Lies. I'd been outperforming everyone for months. But I kept my face neutral, refusing to give him satisfaction. I'm committed to my work, I said evenly. Yesterday's comments made me question my value here, but I'm focused on contributing meaningfully. Victor's mouth curved into something resembling a smile. Good. Because we need team players, not lone wolves chasing personal glory. He dismissed me with a wave. As I turned to leave, I noticed someone standing near the door, Trevor from accounting, watching our exchange with unusual intensity. In the hallway, Trevor caught up to me quickly. Alex, can we talk? He asked quietly, glancing around nervously. We stepped into an empty conference room. Be careful, Trevor whispered urgently. Victor's setting up someone for termination. I've seen the patterns before. He tears them down publicly first, then fires them quietly. My blood ran cold. Why are you telling me this? Trevor shrugged. Because you're good at what you do. And because Victor's threatened by competence. He left before I could respond, leaving me alone with racing thoughts and mounting determination. That afternoon, I made contact with TechVision's CEO, Harrison Bryant. His assistant initially refused my call 3 times. Finally, I sent an encrypted email through a business networking platform, vague but intriguing enough to warrant attention. Harrison called me directly 2 hours later. Who are you and what do you want? His voice was harsh, defensive. I'm interested in discussing TechVision's future, I said carefully. I believe there's potential for a mutually beneficial arrangement. You work for Kane, don't you? Harrison spat the name like poison. I know your company's tactics. Tell Victor to shove his lowball offers. This isn't from Victor, I interrupted. This is personal, private, and I'm risking everything making this call. Silence stretched between us. I'm listening, Harrison finally said, curiosity replacing hostility. We talked for 20 minutes. Harrison was bitter, exhausted from fighting creditors and watching his company crumble. But he was also proud, unwilling to surrender to competitors like Victor who'd mocked his struggles publicly. Meet me tomorrow, Harrison said abruptly. Alone. If I sense any corporate games, we're done. I agreed, pulse pounding. After hanging up, I noticed something odd in TechVision's quarterly reports, a pattern in their spending that suggested deliberate financial mismanagement. Someone had been sabotaging them from inside. That information could be valuable leverage. I needed help I could trust absolutely. I contacted Kira Thompson, an accountant who'd left our company after clashing with Victor's unethical practices. She agreed to meet at a coffee shop far from our usual haunts. You're planning something crazy, Kira said, studying my face over her latte. I explained everything, the humiliation, the anonymous email, the TechVision opportunity. Kira listened without interrupting, her analytical mind processing each detail. You'll need clean financing, she said finally. And bulletproof legal documentation. I know someone, a corporate lawyer named Felix Ortiz who specializes in discrete acquisitions. Within days, I had a team. Kira handling financial analysis, Felix managing legal frameworks, and myself coordinating everything. We met in Felix's office after hours, documents spread across every surface. TechVision's worth roughly $22 million currently, Kira reported. But with proper management and patent leverage, easily $40 million within 2 years. You'll need $26 million minimum, Felix added. Purchase price plus legal fees, restructuring costs, and operational buffer. My savings could cover maybe $2 million. The rest would require investors who wouldn't ask too many questions. My phone buzzed, company-wide email from Victor, mandatory all-hands meeting tomorrow morning. Attendance required. Kira and Felix exchanged worried glances. He's making a move, Kira said quietly. Whatever Victor planned, I needed to appear completely uninvolved in anything suspicious. The all-hands meeting felt like a staged performance. Victor stood at the front of our open office space, looking presidential and smug. "I have exciting news about our leadership structure," he announced. "We're creating a new promotion pathway for high-potential employees." He clicked a remote, displaying an organizational chart. Names appeared in boxes showing clear advancement tracks. My name wasn't anywhere on it. Colleagues shifted uncomfortably. Some glanced at me with pity. Others avoided looking at all. "This pathway rewards those who demonstrate true leadership qualities," Victor continued, eyes briefly meeting mine with cold satisfaction. "Vision, teamwork, loyalty to company values." The message was brutally clear. I had no future here. After the meeting, whispers filled the office. People congratulated those whose names appeared on the chart. Nobody approached me. I returned to my desk, maintaining professional composure while fury built inside my chest. That evening, Trevor sent me an encrypted message: "Board meeting scheduled next month. Word is they're reconsidering Victor's leadership. Financial performance hasn't matched his promises." A crack in Victor's armor. If the board was doubting him, timing mattered enormously. I needed to move faster on TechVision before Victor's potential downfall created chaos that might expose my activities. I called Harrison immediately. "I'm ready to make a formal offer," I said. "But I need this completed within 3 weeks." Meeting Harrison in person was intense. His office at TechVision looked tired: worn furniture, outdated equipment, the physical manifestation of a struggling company. But his eyes held fierce intelligence. "Why should I trust you?" Harrison asked bluntly. "You're nobody. No track record of acquisitions, no proven capital, no corporate backing." I laid out my vision: transform TechVision into an innovation powerhouse, leverage the patents strategically, rebuild the company's reputation. Harrison listened skeptically. "Pretty words," he said. "But I've heard plenty of those. Show me commitment. What do you need?" I asked. Harrison leaned forward. "Proof you're personally invested. Not just playing with corporate money or investor capital. I need to know you'll fight for this company because your own future depends on it." I understood what he was asking. "I'll put my personal assets first," I said. "Before touching any investor money. My savings, my investments, everything. If this fails, I lose everything too." Harrison studied me for a long moment. "You're either brilliant or insane," he said finally. "Maybe both." He extended his hand. "You get me a formal offer with your personal commitment in writing, and we'll talk seriously." I shook his hand, knowing I'd just promised to risk financial ruin. But leadership meant taking risks others couldn't stomach. That's what Victor never understood. Liquidating my assets felt surreal. My retirement account, my investment portfolio, even my modest stock holdings, everything converted to available capital. Kira watched with concern as I signed document after document. "Alex, if this fails, you'll be starting over from nothing," she warned. "I know," I replied, hand steady despite my racing heart. "But that's exactly why it'll work." My personal life took immediate strain. I'd been dating someone casually, Kyle, a teacher who knew nothing about my professional life. When I explained I needed to focus completely on work for a while, he looked hurt but understanding. "This sounds intense," Kyle said. "Are you okay?" I couldn't tell him the truth. "Just a crucial project," I said vaguely. "It'll be over soon, one way or another." We agreed to pause our relationship, which felt like another sacrifice on the altar of this insane gamble. My apartment grew cluttered with documents and takeout containers. I barely slept, constantly reviewing financial models and legal contracts. One morning, I ran into Wesley from product development in the office kitchen. He'd always been friendly, unlike most of Victor's inner circle. "Heard you're working on something interesting," Wesley said casually, pouring coffee. My blood froze. "Just the usual projects," I replied carefully. Wesley smiled oddly. "Right. The usual. He walked away, leaving me paranoid. Had someone discovered my plans? Was Wesley fishing for information, or did he genuinely know something? I texted Felix immediately, possible security breach. Someone's asking questions. Despite my paranoia, progress continued. Harrison tentatively agreed to my offer, $26 million for complete acquisition of TechVision, including all patents, assets, and intellectual property. My personal $2 million showed commitment. The remaining $24 million came from 3 private investors Kira had connected me with, people interested in tech patents and willing to move quickly without extensive due diligence. But then the board caught wind of something. An anonymous rumor reached them that I was scheming outside my role, pursuing unauthorized business activities. I was called into a meeting with Victor and 2 HR representatives. "We've received concerning reports," Victor said, barely containing his glee. "Allegations that you're neglecting your responsibilities here to pursue personal business ventures." "I've completed all my assigned work ahead of schedule," I countered calmly. "My performance metrics are available for review." The HR representatives looked uncomfortable. They knew my work was exemplary. "Nevertheless," Victor continued, "we need assurance that your loyalties lie with this company. Any outside business activities must be disclosed and approved." I maintained steady eye contact. "I have no conflicts of interest that affect my work here." Technically true. My acquisition of TechVision wouldn't conflict with my current role until I chose to reveal it. Victor wasn't satisfied, but he couldn't prove anything. The meeting ended with vague warnings and implied threats. As I left, Victor called out, "Alex, be careful. Corporate espionage has serious consequences." The threat was clear, but Victor's next move was worse. During a team meeting, he publicly mocked my contributions in front of everyone. "Alex's approach lacks strategic thinking," he announced, dismissing my project proposal without reading it. "This is exactly why some people plateau in their careers." Laughter rippled through the room, nervous, obligatory laughter from people afraid to cross Victor. I sat motionless, face burning, fury contained behind professional composure. But inside, I was calculating revenge. After the meeting, I overheard Victor talking with his assistant near the break room. I pressed myself against the wall, listening carefully. "We need to move on TechVision immediately," Victor said urgently. "I've got financing lined up. Bryant's desperate enough now that he'll take any reasonable offer." My heart stopped. Victor was planning to buy TechVision himself. If he moved faster than me, everything would collapse. "Get me a meeting with Bryant by Friday," Victor continued. "I want this wrapped up before the board starts asking difficult questions about our expansion strategy." I had 3 days. Maybe 4 if Harrison stalled Victor deliberately. I texted Harrison immediately, "Kane's making a move. We need to finalize now." Harrison's response came instantly, "Already signed with you this morning. Legal documents filed." He's too late. Relief flooded through me so intensely I nearly collapsed. We'd beaten Victor by hours. But he couldn't know yet. I needed to maintain perfect secrecy while accelerating my timeline for the public reveal. The next 72 hours were brutal. Felix worked around the clock filing paperwork, registering ownership transfers, ensuring every legal requirement was meticulously satisfied. Kira coordinated with investors, guaranteeing funds transferred smoothly without triggering banking alerts that might reach Victor's attention. I maintained my normal office routine, arriving at usual times, attending pointless meetings, pretending nothing had changed. But every phone call, every email, every conversation felt dangerous. One wrong word could expose everything prematurely. Victor grew increasingly agitated. I watched him make phone call after phone call, his face darkening with each conversation. Harrison must have been stonewalling him, refusing meetings, not returning calls. Finally, Victor cornered me in the hallway. "You wouldn't know anything about TechVision suddenly going silent, would you?" he asked, eyes searching my face for tells. "I don't involve myself in competitor activities," I replied smoothly. That's above my pay grade. Victor's jaw clenched. If I find out you've interfered with company business, I've done nothing but my assigned work, I interrupted calmly. Perhaps Harrison simply doesn't want to sell to you. The possibility clearly hadn't occurred to Victor, that someone might reject him personally. He stormed off, leaving me shaking from adrenaline. That evening, Harrison called with unexpected news. There's a complication, he said. One of my board members is questioning your funding sources. Wants verification that everything's legitimate before finalizing. The betrayal came from an unexpected source. Wesley from product development, the colleague who'd asked those probing questions, had apparently been feeding information to Victor all along. He'd noticed my unusual schedule, the private phone calls, the encrypted emails. He'd pieced together enough to realize something significant was happening, even if he didn't know specifics. Victor called an emergency meeting with senior staff, excluding me deliberately. But Trevor from accounting texted me updates. Victor's telling everyone you're conducting unauthorized corporate espionage. Says he has proof you've been stealing company secrets. My stomach dropped. Victor was building a narrative to discredit me before I could reveal the TechVision acquisition. If he convinced the board I was unethical, my credibility would be destroyed. I needed to secure the TechVision deal immediately, before Victor's accusations gained traction. Felix worked frantically, pushing through the final legal verifications. We're 95% complete, he reported. But the board member Harrison mentioned wants a face-to-face meeting. When? I asked. Tomorrow morning. Before the scheduled board meeting at your company. Everything was converging simultaneously. Victor's emergency board meeting, the TechVision verification meeting, the final legal filings, all happening within hours of each other. I spent that night preparing for every possible scenario, knowing that by tomorrow evening, my career would either be destroyed or transformed completely. There was no middle ground anymore. The board meeting felt like entering a courtroom. Victor sat at the head of the table, confident and commanding. I took my usual seat, maintaining perfect composure despite my racing heart. Thank you all for coming, Victor began. We need to address serious concerns about corporate integrity and employee conduct. He didn't name me directly, but everyone knew who he meant. His presentation was methodical. Allegations of unauthorized business activities, suggestions of leaked proprietary information, insinuations about divided loyalties. Some employees, Victor said pointedly, seem to forget that their work, their connections, their knowledge all belong to this company. Personal ambitions that conflict with corporate interests cannot be tolerated. Board members listened with varying expressions of concern and skepticism. I noticed Olivia Chen, one of the senior board members, watching me closely, her face unreadable. These are serious accusations, she said finally. But they're also vague. Do you have specific evidence of wrongdoing? Victor hesitated fractionally. I'm working with HR to document patterns of suspicious behavior. Patterns aren't evidence, Olivia interrupted calmly. If you're accusing an employee of misconduct, you need concrete proof. The tension was thick enough to cut. Victor's confidence flickered slightly. I realized that Trevor's earlier information was accurate. The board was already questioning Victor's leadership effectiveness. His financial projections hadn't materialized, his promised innovations hadn't delivered, and now he was making serious accusations without solid evidence. Perhaps we should hear from Alex directly, another board member suggested. That morning, before the board meeting, I'd finalized everything. Felix had called at dawn. It's done. All documents signed, all funds transferred, all legal requirements satisfied. You officially own TechVision Industries as of 6 a.m. this morning. I sat in my car in the parking lot, hands trembling, barely believing it was real. $26 million. A complete company acquisition. Patents worth potentially $50 million in the right hands. And Victor had no idea. During the board meeting, I remained strategically silent about TechVision, letting Victor's accusations hang without addressing them directly. I fulfilled every responsibility assigned to me, I said calmly. My performance metrics are documented and available for review. If there are specific concerns about my conduct, I'm happy to address them with concrete evidence rather than vague insinuations. Victor's face reddened. Before he could respond, someone's phone buzzed. Then, another. Then, several simultaneously. A financial news alert was spreading through the room. TechVision Industries acquired in surprise deal. Company value spikes 20% on acquisition news. Board members grabbed their phones, reading rapidly. Confusion spread across faces. Who acquired TechVision? Someone asked. Victor, wasn't that your target company? Victor looked genuinely shocked, pulling out his own phone with shaking hands. He'd been so focused on attacking me that he'd missed the news. I watched him read the headline, watched his face transform from confusion to disbelief to dawning horror as he scrolled through the article. The acquisition had been filed publicly that morning. My name was in the documents. Victor's eyes found mine across the table. For a moment, nobody spoke. The room held its collective breath as understanding crystallized. You, Victor whispered, his voice barely audible. Then louder, you bought TechVision? I met his gaze steadily. That's correct. Through a private acquisition completed early this morning. Chaos erupted. Board members demanded explanations, firing questions simultaneously. How did I finance it? When did negotiations begin? Why wasn't the company informed? Because it was a personal investment, I explained calmly. Conducted entirely outside work hours, using private capital and investor relationships that have nothing to do with this company. No corporate resources were used, no proprietary information was shared, no conflicts of interest exist. Victor stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly. This is a betrayal. She used insider knowledge about our strategic interests. I used publicly available financial information, I corrected firmly. TechVision's struggles were documented in quarterly reports anyone could access. My offer was based on standard market analysis, not corporate secrets. Olivia silenced everyone with a raised hand. Let me understand this correctly, she said slowly. Alex personally acquired our primary competitor's company, including their valuable patent portfolio, without using any company resources or creating legal conflicts. That's correct. Felix's voice came from the doorway. He'd arrived as my legal representative, prepared for exactly this moment. I can provide complete documentation proving every aspect of this acquisition was conducted properly and independently. Over the following weeks, I maintained perfect professionalism while implementing subtle changes at my regular job. I'd brought Harrison on as a consultant, and together we began restructuring TechVision from the ground up. The patents I now controlled gave me leverage in industry conversations. Other companies wanted access to the AI integration technology TechVision owned. Suddenly, I was fielding calls from competitors, investors, and media outlets. My performance at Victor's company improved dramatically because I understood both sides of the market now. I could anticipate competitor moves, suggest strategic pivots, and identify opportunities others missed. My quarterly numbers jumped again, 22% revenue increase in my division. Victor couldn't ignore the results, but he couldn't understand their source either. He began undermining me in smaller, pettier ways. My project proposals took weeks to approve instead of days. My meeting invitations were accidentally overlooked. My office was relocated to a smaller space without windows. The psychological warfare was transparent and desperate. Colleagues noticed. Some began approaching me privately, asking questions about TechVision, inquiring about opportunities there. Victor's authority was eroding naturally as people recognized real leadership versus hollow posturing. Olivia scheduled a private meeting with me. The board is impressed with your initiative, she said carefully. But Victor is making your continued employment here complicated. What are your intentions? I'd been waiting for this question. The betrayal came to a head when Wesley tried sabotaging my acquisition in a last desperate move. He contacted TechVision's original investors, claiming my purchase was fraudulent, that I'd misrepresented my financial backing. The accusations were serious enough that Harrison called me, concerned. "We need to address this immediately," Harrison said. "If investors believe there's financial irregularity, they could challenge the acquisition legally." Felix and Kira moved fast, providing complete documentation to every party Wesley had contacted. Bank statements, investor agreements, legal filings, everything transparently documented and irrefutably legitimate. But I saw an opportunity in Wesley's sabotage. His actions revealed that Victor had been directing him, using Wesley to gather intelligence and create problems. That meant Victor had been engaging in actual corporate espionage, using an employee to interfere with my private business activities. Felix drafted a formal complaint to our company's board of directors, documenting Wesley's interference and Victor's involvement. The evidence was compelling: email trails, text messages Wesley had carelessly preserved, witness statements from people who'd heard Victor discussing his plans to stop Alex's little side project. Meanwhile, Harrison approached me with unexpected news. "Several of TechVision's original clients want to renew their contracts," he said, excitement breaking through his usually guarded tone. "Your reputation is bringing back business we'd lost. They trust you in ways they never trusted me. No offense intended." "None taken," I assured him. "What are you proposing?" Harrison smiled. "A partnership. Real partnership. Co-CEOs restructuring TechVision together. Your strategic mind and my technical expertise combined." The unexpected ally came from within the board itself. Olivia requested another private meeting, this time in a neutral location, a quiet restaurant downtown. "The board has been watching developments carefully," Olivia began. "Victor's leadership has been disappointing. Financial targets missed, employee morale declining, strategic opportunities squandered. Then you acquire TechVision independently, demonstrating exactly the kind of bold thinking we need." She leaned forward. "Several board members, myself included, believe this company needs new leadership. Your acquisition shows vision, courage, and execution ability that Victor has never demonstrated." My heart pounded. "What are you suggesting?" "We want to offer you a senior leadership position," Olivia said. "Chief Strategy Officer, with a seat on the executive committee. You'd bring TechVision into a strategic partnership with us, creating value for both companies." "And Victor?" I asked carefully. Olivia's expression hardened. "Victor's contract is being reviewed. His recent behavior, attempting to sabotage your private business activities, making unfounded accusations, using company resources for personal vendettas, has created liability concerns." I processed this carefully. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd risked, was converging into an opportunity beyond my initial goals. But I needed to handle it strategically. "I'm interested," I said finally. "But I have conditions." That evening, Victor must have sensed something shifting. He called an impromptu team meeting, his desperation barely concealed behind forced authority. His attacks on my character became more direct, more reckless. He was losing control and he knew it. I'd coordinated the reveal carefully with Olivia and 2 other senior board members. At the next official board meeting, I presented a strategic initiative, a formal partnership between our company and TechVision, leveraging the patent portfolio I controlled to create industry-leading products. The proposal was comprehensive, backed by financial projections and market analysis that Kira and Harrison had helped develop. Stock value implications alone were staggering. Analysts estimated a 30 to 40% increase if the partnership executed successfully. Board members leaned forward, engaged and excited. Victor's face went through a spectrum of emotions: confusion, realization, panic, rage. "This is a conflict of interest," he erupted. "She owns the competitor. She can't negotiate with herself." "Actually," Felix interjected calmly, "the legal structure is entirely appropriate. Alex would recuse herself from approval votes while presenting the opportunity. Independent board members would evaluate the partnership on its merits." The discussion continued for 2 hours. Questions flew from all directions, but they were interesting questions, strategic questions, not hostile interrogations. By the end, the board voted to pursue the partnership pending detailed due diligence. 7 votes in favor, 1 against. Victor's solitary opposition was noted in the official minutes. As the meeting concluded, media outlets were already reporting the story. Tech industry surprise. Innovative partnership between rivals creates new market leader. The coverage painted me as a visionary, someone who'd seen opportunity where others saw only competition. My phone exploded with messages, from colleagues, from industry contacts, from investors wanting to know what I'd do next. Victor's downfall accelerated rapidly. During the media attention, journalists began investigating his tenure as CEO. They discovered missed projections, questionable expense accounts, and a pattern of aggressive tactics that had cost the company valuable partnerships. The board called an emergency review session. Victor tried defending himself, tried taking credit for the TechVision partnership idea, tried claiming he'd been mentoring me all along. But board members weren't buying it anymore. "Victor, you publicly stated Alex wasn't leadership material," Olivia reminded him coldly. "You excluded her from promotion pathways, undermined her contributions, and attempted to sabotage her private business acquisition. These are documented facts, not interpretations." "I was testing her," Victor protested desperately. "Pushing her to prove herself. By humiliating her in public meetings," another board member countered. "By directing employees to spy on her personal activities? That's not mentorship, that's harassment." The board moved into closed session. I waited outside, checking my phone constantly. Harrison texted, "Whatever happens, we've already won. TechVision is secure, profitable, and positioned for growth." He was right. Even if the partnership fell through, I'd accomplished something remarkable. But I wanted more than survival. I wanted transformation. After 3 hours, Olivia emerged. "The board has made decisions about leadership restructuring," she said formally. "Victor Kane is being placed on administrative leave pending a full review of his conduct. We'd like to offer you the position of Chief Strategy Officer, effective immediately, with responsibility for overseeing the TechVision integration." Victor's humiliation was complete. Forced out by his own arrogance and fear of someone else's success. The official announcement came through a press release that afternoon. Leadership changes position company for innovation era. Alex Morrison named Chief Strategy Officer following successful $26 million acquisition of TechVision Industries. I read my new surname in print. They'd gotten it wrong, but I didn't care. The title was real. The position was real. Everything I'd risked had paid off. The full board meeting that followed was surreal. I sat in Victor's former seat at the executive table, presenting detailed integration plans for TechVision. Board members asked tough questions, but they were collaborative questions, seeking solutions rather than finding faults. "Your acquisition of TechVision for $26 million, one board member noted, has already generated an estimated $42 million in combined company value. That's a remarkable return in less than 2 months." The numbers spoke louder than any defense I could have made. When the partnership was formally approved, applause filled the boardroom. Real applause, not the polite, obligatory kind. Harrison attended virtually, appearing on the conference screen. "This partnership represents more than financial success," I said, standing to address everyone. "It represents what happens when we choose vision over fear, collaboration over competition, and bold action over safe mediocrity." I caught Olivia's eye. She nodded approvingly. Victor's absence was notable. He'd been offered a severance package and quietly ushered out, his decades-long career ending not with triumph but with well-deserved irrelevance. Later, a competitor, Kenneth from a rival firm, sent a cryptic email, "Impressive move. You've changed the game. Let's see if you can maintain what you've built." A challenge for future battles. For now, I'd won this one completely. My first weeks as Chief Strategy Officer were intense but exhilarating. I assembled a new team, bringing in people whose talents Victor had overlooked or suppressed. Wesley was quietly transferred to a different division, his sabotage attempts documented permanently in his personnel file. Trevor from accounting joined my strategic planning group. His loyalty during Victor's attacks hadn't been forgotten. Kira came on as Chief Financial Officer for the TechVision division, and Felix became our General Counsel. The people who'd believed in me when I had nothing but a crazy plan now shared in the success. Colleagues who'd turned away during my humiliation now sought my attention, my approval, my mentorship. The change was obvious and slightly uncomfortable. I remembered everyone who'd laughed at Victor's jokes at my expense, everyone who'd avoided eye contact when I needed support. But I also remembered that fear drives people as much as ambition. They'd been protecting themselves, not necessarily attacking me. I chose to lead with that understanding rather than resentment. The TechVision integration exceeded projections. Harrison's technical expertise combined with my strategic planning created innovations neither company could have achieved independently. Within 6 months, we'd launched 2 new products that dominated their market segments. Stock prices climbed steadily. Industry analysts called our partnership the deal of the decade. But the sweetest victory was watching Victor's name fade from industry conversations. People stopped mentioning him, stopped seeking his opinion, stopped caring about his legacy. He'd become irrelevant, which for someone of his ego was a fate worse than any dramatic downfall. 3 months into my new role, I met Kyle again by chance. We ran into each other at a coffee shop near my office. "Alex," he said, surprised but warm. "I've been seeing your name everywhere. That acquisition story is incredible." We talked for an hour, catching up on everything. I apologized for the abrupt way I'd ended things, explained the insane pressure I'd been under. "I understand now," Kyle said. "You were fighting for something important. I respect that." We agreed to try again, slowly this time, with honesty about the demands of my career. It felt like reclaiming a piece of normalcy that Victor's toxicity had stolen. I also made time to visit Harrison at TechVision's headquarters. The building looked different. Fresh paint, new equipment, energy that had been missing before. "You saved this place," Harrison said simply. "Not just financially. You gave everyone here hope that hard work and innovation matter more than political games and ego." That meant more to me than any title or salary increase. Late one evening, working alone in my office, I allowed myself to reflect fully on the journey. The humiliation of Victor's public rejection, the terrifying risk of investing everything I owned, the sleepless nights wondering if I'd made a catastrophic mistake. Every moment of doubt, every spike of fear, every temptation to quit and accept Victor's judgment of my limitations. I'd pushed through all of it. Not because I was fearless, but because I'd been more afraid of living small than of failing big. My phone buzzed, a LinkedIn message from someone I didn't recognize. "Your story inspired me to take risks I've been avoiding. Thank you for proving that courage and competence can defeat politics and arrogance." A year after Victor's dismissal, I was promoted again, this time to Chief Operating Officer, with clear succession planning toward the CEO position within 3 years. The board had watched my leadership carefully.